you got to get the rhythmic vocabulary in your playing. Rhythm defines styles, you know? You got to play appropriately in the style.
Welcome to episode 79 of the Bass Shed Podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. Yep. Episode 79. Yep. It's like a foghorn leghorn. I don't know what just happened there. Yep. No, it's not foghorn leghorn. What are the cats from Sesame Street? There's like a blue puppet and like a purple puppet, and that was their shtick. The yep. I just channeled some Sesame Street. All right, that's a thing. Episode 79. Excited to have Antony Vitti on the podcast. I will talk more about him in a second. I am also excited that it is his NAMM weekend. I have a love-hate relationship with NAMM. It's such a mess. So much people, so much noise, so much happening. But like halfway through the day, I kind of end up like really getting into it and absorbing like all this manic energy, and then I'm just in it. Last time I was there was NAMM 2020. That was the last one that was held on the West Coast. That was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. And I forgot what podcast episode it was where I was talking about the NAMM shenanigans, but it ended with me, it didn't end. There was, in the middle of it was me getting locked out of a hotel room and sleeping in a car, in my car, not a car. It was definitely my car that I ended up sleeping in. And then my cell phone broke, at the last day. Like I had it in my back pocket, you know, and I just sat down, which is totally like should have been fine. But then the phone broke, like the digitizer of the iPhone, you know, just went to crap. And I had a gig that night, so I had to like leave the NAMM show early, like go get my phone fixed, and then go to this gig. I don't remember where I was playing, but I remember that being pretty stressful. It was a stressful little weekend. With the car sleeping and and the cell phone breaking. There's a lot going on there, in addition to all the hysteria that is the NAMM show. But I'm excited to be back. I will be hanging out with the folks from Lemur. And I will also be hanging out at the Finet booth. You can learn more about that company on episode 56. No, 56. Why did I just say 56? Episode 76 of the Bass Shed Podcast. Listen to the owners of Finet talk about their new music platform. Their new platform for musicians is a way better way to say that. That booth is located right next to Pioneer Speakers. And then, you know, just seeing what's up. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what these companies have that they're coming out with. Excited to talk to some owners of the manufacturers, you know, chat with them, see what's going on, try to get them on the podcast. It's going to be a fun weekend. And I'll be reporting back the next week. Next week, I'll talk about what happened. Let's see how many places I get locked out of, or, you know, if I end up, you know, sleeping next to a dumpster or something crazy that, like the last NAMM show I was at. As I mentioned, Antony Vitti is on the episode. Antony is a faculty member at the famous Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts. Antony and I are going to discuss his time gigging around the New York area as a young bassist in the early 80s. We'll discuss his time as a student at Berklee. Antony and I are also going to talk about, and this is really fascinating to me, how he was involved in establishing the electric bass courses at Berklee. So anyone that has been to or considered going to Berklee for electric bass, this is the guy right here. Antony Vitti was a founding member of the electric bass program at Berklee, and we'll get a chance to hear from him about that. Antony has also written several books for the electric bass. Those books are... Thank you, Klaus. Finger Funk Workbook, Volumes 1 through 3, The Slap Bass Bible, Slap Bass Soloing, Odd Time Sight Reading, Berklee Bass Reading, and Hip Hop Bass Groove. You can find more information about all those books and more at AntonyVitti.com. I will have links to his website at thebassshed.com/podcast/Antony Vitti. All right. Enough with the URL shoutouts. Let's talk about some bass. Here's my talk with electric bassist, author, and educator, Mr. Antony Vitti.
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Oh, look at you, man. You got the rig right there. Yeah, that's what's up.
I got the toys, man.
NAMM shows at your place this year. That's amazing. What do we got here?
Oh, I got everything. We got my cat right here, Lily.
You do have the cat. What's the cat's name?
Lily. That's Lily.
What's up, Lily?
Yeah, what's going on? She loves the bass there. She loves that jazz.
Good for her. What year's the jazz?
That's a 69, that one.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's the main one I play. That one, that was actually a custom order in 69. Somebody had that made at the factory. It has a mahogany body on it.
Oh, wow.
And it's all stamped under the neck in red ink. It says special and it's signed. And
oh, man.
It's really a unique bass. And it has that, that 60s feel, but then it's got that 70s weight, where it's got that crunch like from the 70s. So but with the rosewood neck, you get that warmth of the 60s. And it's really, it's been my favorite. I mean, I've probably owned, 100 jazz basses over the years. And I used to buy and sell them constantly. And that's the best one I've ever played. I mean, that one is just
those
unbelievable.
pickups almost look like kind of 70s position. Like that looks pretty close to the bridge.
Right. I think they did move that after, 65, 66, right?
Okay.
I think they switched that position pre-CBS and then post-CBS, right?
Okay.
And, I have a couple of 63s back there, 65s. I got some others, too.
That's amazing. Do you have any modern basses or mainly the vintage stuff?
Just the sires that they give me,
Okay.
All the sires, that orange one back there.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of Burgundy Mist Metallics. There's V7 or something. There's the V10 over there. They've probably given me 6 or so,
All J basses? I mean, I know the sires are all J, but all the other ones you have?
All 4-string J basses, right.
Yeah. Okay. No P, huh?
Yeah.
You've never made the plunge into a vintage P?
Oh, no. I've owned a few over the years. I owned a couple 62s, a couple 64s, but it was always the case that I'd buy them and then I wouldn't play them, because if I'm going to a gig, I'm bringing a jazz, I'm not bringing a P bass. And then they would sit there and then students at Berklee or something would beg me, could I please, I want that Pino Palladino bass, I want that Jamerson bass. And back then I'd sell them for stupid money, which was like $2,000.
Man.
All original, $2,000. And I'd tell the kids, you're overpaying for this. You're overpaying for this bass, but I don't want to sell it. Yeah. And I'd sell it to them, And now it's, they're laughing now. So
yeah, man, thanks for being on the show. Berklee comes up a lot.
No problem.
Different people, and I thought it'd be interesting to talk to somebody who taught there and was a student. So you have both sides.
Been there 40 years. Yeah, I went to school there in '82.
Yeah,
graduated '86, and then they hired me in '88.
Okay, is that a regular thing where they'll staff the school with alumni? Is that a common practice? Okay.
No, it's not. No.
Okay.
It was just back then, I had no intention of teaching. I mean, I was playing, that was the last thing on my mind. I mean, I went to Berklee. I was a production engineering major. I was an MP&E major. Yeah.
Okay.
But I was gigging a ton. Back then it was different because everybody was a performance major and then you did something else, right? Film scoring or something. It's not like today. And so, like Will Calhoun from Living Color, he was in my class. A bunch of players, Alex Alexandroni, and a bunch of really great players, Chris Horvath, who went on to do amazing things. They were MP&E majors, these cats,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was like that group of people were full of players, were playing on each other's stuff.
Yeah.
It was really a great time,
Nice.
And so then, I graduated. When I graduated out of there, I had already been playing during the summers. I was touring, and I was with like Sammy Davis Jr. and Wayne Newton and Jerry Lewis and Stephen Eady, Gourmet, and the old Vegas acts, right? I caught the tail end of that with Bobby Vinton and all those people.
That's a cool lineage to connect to, a cool legacy to connect to, I guess is the better word. Because I mean those dudes, icons.
It was still at that point in 82, 83, 84, you were still doing the 40-piece orchestras, right. So it was still full big band, full string section. And, you're doing Vegas, Atlantic City, the big showrooms. So with Sammy Davis, you're catching the end of an era. And I knew it at the time. I was by far the youngest cat, Okay. And it was everybody who was out with, Sinatra's band or Stan Kenton's band, and all the horn players were these monster, players. Sure. And here I'm a young kid, but I wasn't there for my jazz playing. I was there because they were trying to get a young rhythm section for younger crowds. And so they got away from the upright bass. They were using electric bass, younger rhythm section, and they're trying to do like more modern tunes like New Attitude and stuff like that. Yeah. And it just to get a younger crowd, because the crowd was dying off, Right, it was
have
so
a more
old.
Relevant feel to it all instead of just like the old,
right.
So
all here,
or nothing at all.
Yeah. So here, us younger guys are killing it on the modern stuff, no problem. But the older cats are crushing us on the
the old swing
the vintage stuff, right? So it was interesting. Tony Bennett's band would come in, and Paul Langish was playing bass with him, and I'd get to play a jazz set with the band before Tony came out, for the opening act and stuff. It was incredible, and I'm meeting all these. Bob Cranshaw was with Gregory Hines or Maurice Hines at the time. And so again, I was playing with the opening act, and I'd hang with Bob, and not even knowing really who he was at the time. I was a kid, 19.
Again, that's a bass legacy to connect with,
right?
That's huge,
right? It's Sonny Rollins and everything, and it was I know.
How'd you get involved with that? Did you go out on the audition? Was it word of mouth? Someone in the rhythm section recommend you?
So I grew up in New York City, right? And so I was playing in like the rock bands in New York, right? In 82. And the club bands were, Twisted Sister, the Good Rats, all them, right? Yeah. So I'm playing with all those cats, right? With Dee Snider, all these guys, right? And so we're playing at the Soap Factory, Emmett's Inn, all the big clubs in New York. And I'm 17. I'm in high school, right? Yeah. So I'm playing till 4 a.m, and then coming home on a Tuesday night and going to high school, It was insane. It was crazy, right? Yeah. My mom's car, borrowing my mom's car. And so
were your folks ever weird about that? Were they ever weird about you, like what that meant for a 17-year-old to be out till 4 a.m. in New York City, and like, during that time in the 80s, and just coming out of what I've heard New York was in the 70s going into the 80s.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Would your folks get concerned about that, or were they pretty cool?
They were cool because I had 3 older brothers, and so by the time it got to me, it's like pretty loose,
Yeah.
But I was a good kid. Honestly, that scene, there were a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking in that scene, especially backstage. And I can honestly say I never did anything. I never even smoked weed in my life. Nothing.
Okay.
And I just kept it kind of straight and narrow back then, and there was a lot of that going on backstage, a lot of drugs, a lot of, coke, and a lot of pills and meth and all that stuff. But I was always kind of scared of that stuff. I don't know. I was hanging with everybody, but I just said, everybody was cool. You do your own thing, and I'd have a beer or something, but I just never got into that whole thing. And that's why I left the scene, actually, because so I'm playing in New York, and me and a group of friends all said we're going to go to Berklee, right? And in high school, and then they all backed out, right? They all kind of backed out of going to Berklee, and they're the ones who turned me on to it. And so I'm in the club scene in New York, and I'm playing with all the biggest bands in New York City, and I'm going, well, this is cool, but then the drugs that were going on, the scene, and then they were much older than me, those guys, even back then, right? Sister, they were probably in their 30s, which was old, right? Back then, the late 20s, early 30s. Dee had a wife and a kid, I remember at the time. And that was before Under the Blade came out and their big hits, and just before, the summer before, 82. And so I was looking around, and I'm saying, why am I basing my life on these people? If the bands don't work, I'm done. I'm just a bass player in a band, right? Yeah. And I don't want... That's an interesting
perspective for a 17-year-old. Like, that's actually a really mature perspective. Instead of doing whatever you can to be part of the movement and be part of the hang and be part of the crew. And like, oh man, I'm so desperate to be a part of this. That's a really mature perspective to be like, I still have to deal with me regardless what happens with them.
I just felt like everything I was doing was not in my control. It was in the control of the singer in the band, the band, and I'm just a sideman who they could just replace. And I was just like, I need more control over my career, you know? And I wanted to be a little more serious about playing, and I could see some of the bands burning out and what was going on. And I said, I don't want to do this. And I didn't want to stay home. I was a young kid, of course. I didn't, I was tired of my parents and stuff, me and my old man. Yeah. And so
I wanted to go to the bass collective when I was that age. Like the bass collective was the hot. Yeah, I was trying to talk my mom into dropping out of high school junior year. Like, let me go to New York. My mom wasn't interested in that idea.
She wasn't down with that.
No, mom didn't have the same passion for the thing that I did.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's similarly. Yeah, I wanted to just go somewhere else and just put myself in this environment of education and a bunch of bass players and musicians to absorb it all. It sounds like that's where you were at with Berklee. That's
exactly what happened. I went up there. I hadn't even been accepted yet. I didn't even have my loans through or nothing. My father kind of dropped me off up there. And actually, Berklee didn't even let me go to classes the first week because my money hadn't come through, my loans. And they let me stay there for a few days, and they said, "Hey, if the loans don't come through, you're not going to class, and you have to leave." And it was kind of a weird time, and it came through, and that was it. I just stayed in Boston. I went to school, loved it there, and so anyway, I go there. Right, I'm there in the fall of '82, and I get a phone call from these guys in New York City, and they said, "Hey, we were putting together like a quartet to go up and play at the Neverly Country Club between Christmas and New Year's in the Catskills, and it's one of these big resorts in upstate New York in the Catskills, right?" And they said, you're at Berklee now, so you must be playing jazz. So do you want to come and do it? And I'm just like, they just assumed I was like, playing jazz, now, right? Because Berklee was a jazz school at that point. And so I took the gig with these guys, and I went up to the Catskills that winter, and we were just like a lounge band, playing. But I met all these people, the acts that were coming in and doing the big shows, and the guys in the nightclub, the other bands were really good, the older players. And from that, they then asked me to come the whole summer, that following summer. So I did that, got better, standards, learning standards and everything, playing jazz. And after that summer, they asked me to come back the following summer in '84, but then Brown's Hotel in the Catskills, which Jerry Lewis was part of, asked me to come there and offered me like 4 times the money to be the house bass player and be in the show band. And that was that. Once I did that, then I started playing with everybody, who came.
And that was
through.
just a summer contract, so you could stay in school.
Yes, that's right. Okay. There were summer contracts, and that's when those shows would go out. And Brown's Hotel got the big acts. They got Tony Bennett and Jerry Lewis, and all the big acts went there. They had the big Vegas acts, and so that's where I met everybody. From there, I just kept doing that for about 4 or 5 years. I did that during the summer. Berklee, when I graduated, knew I had the jazz experience, the background doing that stuff, but every teacher in the department in '86 and '87 was an upright player. Okay, yeah. So when we went there, you had to play upright. You were forced to play upright. And so Rich Appleman, with his foresight, called me up one day and said, '88, he goes, "Hey, do you want to teach in the bass department?" And I'm like, I don't know how to teach. What are you talking about, Rich? I said, he goes, "Well, what are you doing, during the day?" I said, "Well, during the day, I'm practicing and, sleeping and gigging every night, gigging every night. I was playing 7 nights a week." And so he goes, "Well, why don't you come in? I have some overflow. I'll give you like 4 or 5 students. If you like it, you keep doing it. If you don't, you can leave." He goes, Okay. And that was it. I went in. He gave me like 4 students. I freaking loved it. Yeah. And it was like I was one of the original electric players,
Yeah.
So that's what he was offering. So it was me, Danny Morris, Joe Santerre, and Oscar Stagnaro.
Okay.
And it was like we were the 4 electric teachers, and then we wrote all the courses. You know,
that's what I was gonna ask. Like, where do you?
Yeah.
Did you guys have a meeting of the families? You know, did you guys all come together and talk about how you're gonna hash out curriculum? And like, okay, well, I mean, it's still a relatively new instrument at this point.
Right.
You know,
very new, right? It wasn't really respected, you know. It was really considered a doubling instrument, you know. It was like you still didn't have the respect yet, but guys like, you know, Marcus Miller and Sonny you know, Cranshaw and all these
and during those years, like Pastorius was around New York City and he's doing his thing. That's an exciting time to be in New York, actually.
It was. And it started to become respected. That late 70s, early 80s, it was okay to just play electric in that period, you know, where before, and even during that, on some things, it was a doubling instrument, the electric bass. It was just a unique period to be around. And Marcus Miller playing with Miles and, you know, an electric player doing that. It was like, okay, you know, and Scofield using, you know, Gary Granger and having the electric players, you know, playing jazz, you know, or funky rhythm sections with the jazz players. George Benson using, you know, Pops Popwell and cats like that. And it was like
what years was Mark Egan with the Matheny group? Because that was around that kind of period on the fretless stuff. Yeah, Pino Cotton Pop sessions on fretless.
Right.
All the Jamerson stuff, obviously.
Pino was with Paul Young. We knew him from back then. And, you know, Stay With Me and all that. And we're like, wait, this is the same guy in the 90s then on that D'Angelo Voodoo album?
I know.
I'm like, what? How can that be? You know?
Insane.
Yeah, so it was just a unique period that it was okay to play electric. And basically what happened at Berklee is the 4 of us were the electric players, and Rich just had the foresight to hire kind of specialty cats, you know, like Oscar playing with Paquito, you know, the Latin cat.
Yeah.
Danny with his Motown reggae experience. Joe, 6-string, you know, fusion, you know, all that kind of stuff. Yet everybody could play jazz and cross over, and I was the 4-string, Marcus Miller, traditional, you know, R&B and soul guy.
Yeah.
But we all had the jazz experience too. And then he just let us write courses, you know, in our thing. So, you know, Oscar took care of the Latin bass stuff. I took care of the slap bass courses and the fingerstyle R&B. Joe did the 6-string stuff. Danny did Motown and, you know, reggae stuff and things like that. So it was just worked out great. You know, it was
cool, man.
The 4 of us and changed the whole department, you know, and the bass department, and made the electric bass, you know, respectable instrument. And it was like just all of a sudden you had more electric players. We saw the progress from upright to electric coming into the college and stuff, and it was a very cool period to be part of it, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, it's you know, there's, when you're going back and writing these courses, there hadn't been that many players to like really establish the thing yet. So you have guys out there like Marcus and Stanley, who's a doubler, but like still kind of brought the electric into a new thing. Where do you go to because like techniques weren't even fully developed yet? Oh no.
You know, and when you wanted to do like, you know, like when I proposed a slap bass, you know, course, I got laughed at. I mean, I got laughed at.
Yeah,
right?
Would you just start with Larry?
What
Graham
is that? Everybody's like, what are you going to do? Tap on the bass? You're really going to teach this at the college? I mean, everybody laughed. And I said, no, I said, this is a valid technique now. I said, you got to understand, it's becoming expected that people can do this. And it's becoming, blurring the lines. It's another sound on the instrument. It's not just a trick anymore. It's another way of phrasing and another sound, you know, a texture on the instrument. The way Marcus is
vocabulary to it, like it's a yeah.
And I had to convince them. They said no at first, and then I finally got them to allow me to write the first course. And, you know, at that point, right, even in the early 80s, there's not a ton of material yet, you know. I mean, you can only go back to the mid-70s and Louis Johnson and, you know, Larry Graham and Marcus then, of course, coming out. And those were the cats. I mean, those were the 3 cats. And
what Marcus did with it was really... I mean, blew the doors kind of wide open.
It was ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, when he came out when I first heard him with Luther, and then I heard him with Sanborn, really that Straight to the Heart album, when he played Run for Cover, that live version and all that, that just blew everybody away. And that just tied the traditional Larry Graham technique, everything's in E still, and octaves and hammer-ons. And then he just pushes it to the whole next level where he starts thumbing grooves that anybody else would have played fingerstyle, Yeah. And I know Marcus, you know that, and I've talked to him about it many times, and I just said, man, you just bridged that gap. I said, you totally, were unique on that Never Too Much album with Luther when he's some of those grooves. It went from that busy 70s thing to more, the pocket, doom, da-dum. Heavy, and some finger style mixed in there and stuff, and different keys. He's playing like a shuffle, like I've been working. It's a shuffle in B flat. In B flat. I mean, different keys. He starts expanding out, and it was like that. He really took it to a whole nother level. And he told me, he said, man, he goes, I was in the studio. He goes, and the producers kept asking me to, give me more attack on the bass, more attack. He goes, so I started thumbing the lines, he says, just started thumbing some of the grooves. He goes, he said, they'd always say, yeah, more like that, man, more like that, give us more of that. And he goes, so I just kept doing it. He goes, I just kept thumbing all the grooves. Yeah.
Yeah, well, what's the adage? Invention, is that a necessity or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of that thing. Like, you had to do it, so he created this whole culture within the bass. It's amazing.
And then he said that they would just, no matter what session I went on, he goes, I was trying to play different custom basses and all this, and they'd always say, we only want that jazz bass. Just bring the jazz bass. Yeah. That's it. Huh. And that's how he kind of went that route, So anyway,
interesting. Yeah,
that was, super cool. It's super cool, being a kid, growing up listening to all these players, and Marcus and Victor and Ray Brown and all these guys, and then knowing them later on, what I mean? Right. And being a friend of them, or Petitucci, I've been friends with him for years, and that blows me away. It's just, when did this happen? I still feel like
every once in a while.
Oh my God, I still feel like a kid, you're sitting there. Like, I go into Berklee a few weeks ago, right? And I hadn't seen Petitucci in a little while because of the COVID stuff. I hadn't seen him in a little while. And so he calls me up, Anthony, come over here. He goes, you got to try my new bass, man. He goes, you got to try my new bass, man. They just made me this custom bass. This is my new model with Yamaha.
Is that the kind of the big kind of Thundercat looking one?
No, okay. He's getting away from that one. Yeah, now he's
I saw him, I'm a huge Petitucci fan, studied with him, had some really sincere, heartfelt conversations on the phone with him about life and at the time I was married, and organizing personal life and practice time, and lovely human.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, I can't wait to have him on the podcast at some point. But I was calling it the Thunder Pat when he was doing that, when he was using that bass for the that record he did with the two guitar players. I caught him out here at the Blue Whale doing it. Forgot the name.
I've played that bass. I mean, I've played it. That's a huge thing. And, he was kind of laughing. He was kind of laughing at it a little bit. And he's like, no, I'm back to the electric. So it's just like his original electric.
Okay, you just got another Yamaha TRB?
Exactly. It's like that, right. And it's just, but it was really nice. It's just been tweaked a bit, and, a couple of, modifications to it, and it was beautiful. But it's so funny that he'll call me in, and it's just like, you got to check this out. You have to check it out. Me? Why me? It's like I feel like a little kid,
That's amazing. It
is.
So you've developed courses at Berklee, but you also you write your own books, and the books, again, kind of similarly to what we just talked about with Marcus, came out of necessity. You were writing these books to teach out of. Mm-hmm. And so you created
actually not to teach out of. I wrote the books for me to practice. Really.
Okay. So these were your personal practice.
It was my material because at the time, the first book I wrote was the sight reading funk rhythms, right? Mm-hmm. Because back in the late '80s, early '90s, there was no bass material. that was hard, to read, not funky stuff. You had to read trombone music, or you had to read classical music, or cello music. And it was like, I'm getting called to play and record dates, which are R&B, and those difficult, syncopated rhythms and stuff. And there was nothing. I mean, there were no books. You'd go to the store in the bass section.
Something I never thought about. Yeah, like what the publication was like. Yeah,
there was nothing for electric bass. Nothing.
Interesting.
And so I said, well, I'm going to write really hard grooves, bass lines that will, they'll have so much variation that I can't memorize them.
Yeah.
And, song form, like an A section, a B section, an A section, 3 pages, and they'll get progressively harder rhythmically. So I'll start with this groove. Second page, the rhythms get harder. Third page gets ridiculous. And it's all variation. So it's familiar like a bass line, but you can't memorize it. It's just too much variation.
Sure. So it keeps you reading.
You have to read, right?
Yeah,
you got to read it. And so I wrote that stuff for me, to practice. And then I would use it with some of the students at Berklee, and they loved it. And I said, well, you know what? Let me try to put it in a book, and see if anybody will buy it. So at that time, it was like Bass Player magazine, right? Mm-hmm. So I took out a classified ad in the back of Bass Player magazine. Okay. And it was mail order only, and I did the book on I was one of the first to get a computer, so it was early 90s. It was ridiculous. And use Finale, that was ridiculous back then, 94 or something like that, 93. So I put this book together, and then I said I was going to sell it in Bass Player magazine, and of course everybody laughed at me. Who's going to buy your book? Who's going to buy that stuff? I said, well, if nobody buys it, I went to a printer in New Hampshire, and I just printed up like 100 copies of this book with a white cover, and I put I put the ad in the back of the magazine for like $20 a month or something, and and mail order, the checks started coming in. I mean, I'd go to my mailbox and there'd be like 10 checks in the mail, for $10. I was selling it for $10. Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Yeah, and so I tape them up, send the books out, send them out. And it just kept going like that. And I take bigger ads. So I wrote, Finger Funk Volume 1 was the second book, or maybe Slap Bass Bible. I think it was Finger Funk Volume 1. And the same
perspective,
thing.
You have 3 of them out. You have Finger Funk 1 through 3. So you're just writing the first one at this point.
Right. So I think the Slap Bass Bible might have been the second book. That was probably the second one, but so I just tried doing some different styles and stay away from the jazz, because we had enough jazz teachers at Berklee that were writing books for jazz and walking bass, and even some of the guys even asked me not to write jazz stuff. Some of the older cats kind of were like, "Hey man, that's our thing," And I was like,
the territory.
I won't mention names, but I remember them talking to me, and hey man, that's our thing. You do the R&B stuff and that. And I said, okay, I'm not stepping on anybody.
Sure.
So that's all I did. I just put it in the back of the magazine, and it sold. So I just kept doing it, and then it just kept going well. And when I was able to do a website, when that became a thing, I put up a website, got my name, AntonyVitti.com right away, and did a website, and that was still mail order. And then as the technology progressed, credit cards, and
that's cool.
It was super cool, and it just went that way. But all that material, like the Finger Funk books, those were just exercises I wrote for myself, at the beginning.
Where did you go to get, because again, that's still a really new technique on the bass. I mean, probably if I think through the lineage of electric fingerstyle funk, I mean, you can get some of it from Jamerson for sure. Mm-hmm. Lines like, was it For Once in My Life?
Right.
That's got that stuff in it. You don't really get into the heavy muted thing until Jocko and Prestia.
Right. Rocco, and I was really into Rocco. I wasn't that much into Jocko, but I was into Rocco Prestia. I was into Tower.
Now, was that, I'm curious about this actually, because that's not something I would think to hear from a Berklee professor. you know, who teaches electric bass, I wasn't really into Jocko.
No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't into Jocko.
Because he was around when you were there and you were hearing all the war stories and like, yeah, you can go down to the basketball court that he's sleeping on. And you
I met him. Yeah.
You were around for his fall a little bit.
I met him. Oh, yeah. I met him. He tried to bum $20 off me on the basketball court. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll tell you that story if you want to hear it. But
oh, hell yes, I do.
Oh, yeah. But no, I wasn't into him because I think I was at that point, I was really into jazz, more straight ahead and traditional jazz. And I know lightning's going to strike me down. I know it.
No, that's all right. But I have my lightning strike moments too. There's dudes within the continuum of bass. I'm like, yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, I just wasn't into his soloing, his improv stuff. I loved his rhythm section playing, the aggressiveness, the bass playing. And that's all I do.
In his sound is untouchable.
And that's all that I do. I'm a rhythm section player, right? Yeah. I play behind people. I'm not a bass solo cat, right? Yeah. I don't do that stuff. So it never really interested me. When I'm listening to solo stuff, I'm listening to Oscar Peterson, I'm listening to George Benson, I'm listening to, Bill Evans, those are the people I listen to for improv. Okay. For bass playing, I'm listening to Jocko for the rhythm section stuff.
Yeah, you're listening to bass players playing bass functionally.
Playing bass, right. Groove, time, feel, consistency, sound. Yeah. And with that, I love his playing. Of course, I went through the whole gamut of Teen Town and everything and Portrait of Tracy. You had to, right? Yeah. I mean, of course, you had to play all that stuff. And so, of course, in that respect, the stuff with Joni Mitchell was amazing and all that. I love that stuff. But I was more into like kind of Marcus and that kind of groove pocket because I'm not a 70s player. I wasn't playing in the 70s. That busy, Jamerson kind of playing. I came in the 80s, 1980. So when the music changed from that busy stuff to the pocket stuff, and that's why guys like Jamerson fell off and stuff in the 80s because the music had changed. Now it was this do-dum, cat-dum, do-dum, cat-dum, do-dum, cat-dum, do-dum. Time, feel, you're playing with drum machines, your time had to be, precise, right? Perfect. And that's the era I was influenced by. And with that said, when I was a young cat in the 80s playing good gigs, I'm playing with older drummers, right? So those drummers, their idea of funk is, man, you don't know what funk is. You got to listen to Herbie. You got to listen to Thrust, and you got to listen to Paul Jackson. You got to listen to, these cats, right? And I'm just like, yeah, but that's kind of that busy funk. I get it, but I'm more into,
So what was your association with James Brown? Because that is what you're speaking of is the epitome of the James Brown thing, where you just play, I'm thinking specifically of a bass player named Fred Thomas, who I can call a friend now. He's been on the podcast. James's longest standing bass player. And he was just like, if you listen to like the Payback, 2 notes for 7 minutes straight. Boom,
loved it. Right.
That's it.
Right.
Like that's right. That's even more simple than the Headhunters stuff. Yeah.
Yep. But the weight of it, right? The weight and the vibe, to it and, right? The vibe with the band and where it's fitting in the groove with the guitar. See, that's what spoke to me. Is that stuff? The James Brown stuff, the Marcus with Sanborn and everything he was doing, all that playing. That's and I grew up listening to, even the funk bands I was listening to was like Cameo, Midnight Star, the Jazz Band, kind of that electronic kind of funk. Sure. And, that's what I love. So that's the stuff I was into. And I started playing in 1980. So
in
I
80.
really,
oh, wow. Yeah. So you were kind of like, fresh off the boat a little bit right before you got into Berklee. Like you're still a newbie.
Yep.
Is fresh off the boat racist now? Like, I don't want to be racist. That's
everything is racist.
Everything's racist. Yeah, I'm racist. I say my own name and I'm racist.
Me too.
What part of Italy are you from? My mom's Italian. What part of
My
Italy?
mom's from Sicily. My father's from Naples, outside of Naples.
Oh, okay.
Little town.
You go
little
back?
town in the mountains. I have not been back, and they have
No?
land there too and everything.
Really?
But I have not. I got to get over there. Right. I've never played over there. I've never been there, and it's one of my regrets is not going with them. They used to go every year,
Sure.
and I was just too busy, to
Yeah.
go, and I never went. I thought I would tour at some point over there and see a lot of things, and I just never did. I was in Asia and Japan and all that, but never over in Italy, So
That actually brings up an interesting topic. How has being a professor impacted your performance schedule?
yeah, it totally changed. So here's the thing: like when you're first hired at Berklee and you're teaching there, you're a part-time professor, okay, part-time
Okay.
teacher, right?
Adjunct?
So you're instructor, assistant professor, associate professor, and then full professor, right?
Yeah.
So if you're part-time, which 70% of the teachers at Berklee are part-time, right? All colleges. Then you can come and go as you please because you're considered part-time.
Right.
So you gig and you tour and you play, and Berklee's very forgiving on that because they want you out there playing
Yeah,
and
of
doing
course.
all that, right? So I was part-time for about 17 years at the college, and then they promoted me to full-time, okay, full professor, full-time, and I was still touring. I was touring with, at that time, with the original Platters, with Herb Reed and Sonny Turner and the original guys.
Yeah.
And so we were out on the road probably 2 weeks a month, and then I'd come back. And finally, Berklee pulls me aside and says, "Hey, you can't be out 2 weeks a month.
Yeah, yeah.
You took the gig,
Yeah.
as
You're with
full
us
time.
now. Yeah.
Now you got to commit,
Yeah.
to being here more, and part timers can make it up. Full timers we expect to be here more, and that totally changed things because then I couldn't take these tours and say, I can only do half of the tour.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, people
They're not
don't want to hear
they're not
that,
gonna-
right?
No. They're not
Right,
gonna
you're
do-
taking all or nothing.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty much it at that
Okay.
point. I started doing just hits on the weekends or a week here or there. And then about 10 years ago, I had this house up in Maine. And I just decided I loved it up here, and I just said, you know what, I want to live there, and I'll work in Boston, but I want to live in Maine. I don't want to live in Massachusetts anymore.
What's the commute
And-
time? I've never been to Maine. I've been to Boston, but I've never been to Maine.
It's about 3.5 hours for me.
Okay.
Each way.
You
But
make a commute, a couple times a week?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I do is I stay overnight. I go in Tuesday afternoon. I mean, full-time professor is not like a 40-hour week
Right.
job, right? So you can do it in 2 days. But so what I do is I go in Tuesday. I teach from 2 to 9 at night on Tuesday.
Okay.
I get a hotel. I stay overnight. I go in at 5 in the morning on Wednesday, and I practice till about 9, and then I teach from 9 to 1. And then I
Okay.
come home. Yeah, it's not bad. I come back to Maine, no traffic because I'm hitting off hours.
Yeah.
And then Friday, I do the whole day. I leave here about 5 in the morning, and I drive in. I teach 9 to 9 or 9 to 8, and then I drive home, get home about midnight, something like
Okay.
that. So Friday's my big day. But,
Yeah, that's
you
a
know
long
what?
one.
You know what, Ryan? You're playing bass, man, right?
You're playing bass and you're living where you want to
Yeah.
live. You know what I mean?
No,
Like you get to go
right.
home and you're like, yeah, I chose this location. I'm not
Yeah.
subject to live in this city because it's
Right.
where I work. Like I'm choosing to live here.
Yeah, I've got 2 homes up here. This is a log cabin up here on 100
amazing.
acres.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
I'm on
gosh.
100 acres. It's beautiful. And then I've got a 1790 historic house right on the ocean that I restored.
That's why I want to
about
go up to
2 months
Maine
ago.
and like all the history up
Oh,
there
well,
and like the architecture. I geek out on that stuff pretty hard.
Oh, you got to see my historic home. It was a home of the year in Down East magazine.
Really?
Maine homes, yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
you got to see it. It took me 2 years to restore it, me and my wife.
What are the qualifications for home of the year? Is it just structural and outside architecture, or is
Yeah, it
it
was
whatever you
vintage
did
and
with
the inside. Yeah,
Okay.
all the restoration inside and outside. We had to lift the house and restore
Oh my
it.
gosh.
Oh, I mean, yeah, we're talking serious
What,
work
you have
here,
to do,
man.
like plane the foundation? Did you have to level all that?
Well, it's all from 1790, right?
Sure.
So it's a brick foundation, and then they have what they call sills, which are the big hand-hewn beams, right? That you'd see, 10 by 10, 12 by 12, whatever they are, that the house sits on. Well, those beams rot out over time, right? So we had to jack the house up and replace those sills, and then the front of the house had fallen about 8 or 12 inches down. And so I had to dig down to what they call the ledge, the granite, the rock. I had to dig by hand inside the house down to the ledge.
This only took 2 years?
Yeah. And poured
like a 5-6 year. Damn.
There's still some work to do. Yeah. But and then I poured a foundation down there, and we sat the house back down, and we had raised it about 6 inches, in the front. And that's how I cured that. So what I did was I got some old timers who worked on these houses to just coach me and tell me what to do.
That's smart.
Yeah, because they didn't want to do the work. They're too old. They didn't want to do the work. But they would sit there and say, okay, I'm coming back Monday. It's Friday.
That's the job everybody wants in everything, though. You don't want to do the work. You just want to tell somebody how to do the work.
Tell somebody how to do it, right?
I'm not even an old timer, and I want that job. I don't know. Pick up a shovel and maybe dig. I'll be back on Monday.
That's exactly what he told me. Yeah. You dig down. He goes, dig to the ledge, right? He goes, dig to the ledge. I'm like, what's a ledge? What are you talking about?
You'll find out, kid.
When you hit the rock, he goes, you'll know it. To dig down till you hit the rock. I'm like, okay, it's on a hill, but the house, so I guess it's on a big granite boulder. And so I dug down about 4 or 5 feet and I hit the rock.
Man. How big? So, I mean, that's not just like one small hole.
Right.
I don't know why I'm getting into geology now, but that's not how big how big did the hole have to be? All 5 feet down.
Yeah, it was probably not too bad. Maybe it was the entryway to the house, the little mudroom kind of foyer coming in. Okay. So it was probably 10, 12 feet wide, about 8 feet. Yeah, maybe 8 feet wide, right. And because back then they added it to the house probably in like 1830, and they just took rocks and stacked them in the corners.
Right.
And built it on that, and those rocks had fallen off, and so I found pennies from like 1830, 1840, and it was pretty cool. Ink wells and all kinds of stuff, man. Yeah. It was really cool. And if you feel that history, I think it's like anything, right? It's like the vintage bases, it's like the vintage houses. I'm just for that kind of stuff, I'm just, I love that stuff. I love the historic things, pocket watches. I have a collection from the 1800s.
I used to be into that. I used to be into like old pocket watches as a teenager. I was like starting a collection before I even knew about them. I just thought they were cool, like pocket knives, like old pocket knives.
Yeah, old stuff, right? Yeah. Vintage stuff. I love it. I always have. And I'm a throwback, in that respect to that stuff. And
I do. You kind of just mentioned it in passing a little bit. Like there's being around that stuff. There's an energy and there's a feeling and there's a connection to all that. Whether you're playing a vintage instrument or you're going into a vintage recording studio. I remember David Hood from the Swampers was on the podcast and we were talking off mic. Like, dude, I want to be the first guy to cut a jazz record at Fame. He's like, come on out. I'm like, what? I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, the dude in the Swampers is inviting me to Fame. This is heavy. Yeah. Hopefully I can make that happen. But just to be in the room, where these integrated sessions were happening in the South in 60s and all the cultural relevance of that.
My God.
It's huge.
You feel it, right?
All there. Yeah.
Yeah, you feel it. When you're in those rooms or doing that, when you're working on a house like that and you see the copper nails in the ceiling. Copper nails. I mean, you're like, who put those in there, man? Some dude got up there and hand planed these beams and put these copper nails in the lath, and it's all horsehair plaster, and it's all original. The house is all original. I bought it from the original family that built it in 1790.
Oh my gosh.
It was passed down. It was passed down from kid to kid to kid.
Wow.
And it was the first time it was ever sold.
Like, if I were in your position on this, I would be like, one, score. This is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm getting it from the dudes, like straight from the source. Yeah. Also, like, no, keep it in the family. Like, I don't want to be the guy who breaks the chain.
But
like,
they were all gone. The family was gone. And so that was the last one. He lived in Florida. Okay. And he was renting it for like 20 years, and the people trashed it.
Oh, and you get in there and
we came up there and restored it. I got to show you something. Hold on a second.
Okay, yeah.
So this is the issue in 2019.
Is that it on the cover?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. I love that stairwell.
You see that stairwell? Yeah. That's all the floors. I hand painted that whole thing. The geometry on there, all of the black and white. Look at the upstairs there.
Oh, that's the lower picture?
Yeah, the lower picture is the reading nook upstairs.
Oh,
the kitchen, I built that kitchen there. The original floors in the house I restored.
Wow.
And I built all the cabinets and the original, like table in there you can see. And then the living room, all period furniture from the 1800s.
I was going to ask how you decorated it. If you went into, I mean, there's two different trains of thought here. You could like keep it all time specific and use period furniture like you did, or go completely modern and do a juxtaposition thing.
No, when you walk in that house, it's
it feels
exactly
like a throwback.
It's exactly what you want it to be. It's so vintage.
The plot or the foundation looks a little bit off kilter from the curb or the line there. I noticed that. The street came in after the house was built, clearly.
Exactly. So the street is now like 3-4 feet above where the house used to be level to the street.
Oh, okay.
And so when it was a dirt road, it's on a hill. It's called Fort Hill, so it's up high.
Yeah.
And the house is now, 3-4 feet below street level there.
Is that a lake?
The ocean is it's to the left. Yeah, it is there. Yeah, it's back to the left, right? Okay. Yeah. So you can see it from the deck
amazing.
and everything.
That's worth the 3-hour drive into Berklee.
People have no idea, right? Yeah. And that's that house. That house is only not even 2 miles from this, and this is a log cabin. This is the real deal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Sick. Oh yeah. It's all the trees and everything.
The studio space too, or is this just kind of the practice room getaway? Is this your?
Yeah, this is where I teach. So I do a lot of online teaching, and so I have multiple cameras here, and for if I'm playing and stuff.
Yeah. Smart.
So I can use all that stuff, and so I have a nice setup. And then, so I also wrote 2 online courses for Berklee, right? So I have the slap bass course, and then I have what they call a rock bass course, which is really more blues and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so those run 4 times a year. They're 12-week semesters, and they run 4 times a year. So I do a lot of teaching here, grading, and then live chats, every week with those students and stuff too. I have a few sections of those courses. So when the COVID stuff hit, I was always teaching. I already had my setup here. I just kind of upped it a little bit, made the sound better. Sure. And I figure if these students are paying so much money, for Berklee, and they're not getting Berklee, the in-person experience, the least I can do is make it as good as possible,
I've talked to a good friend of mine, has tenure at a community college out here. He's a great teacher, burning guitar player. And him and I have talked a lot about with the rise of online education, and it seems like everybody is teaching something online now, how that's been impacting the school for him. That's a community college. It's Pasadena Community College, City College, whatever they call it. Fantastic program. All the teachers are friends of mine, and they get it. They're not just like, I'm sure you've seen this with your time in the education system. There's dudes who like think that they're players first, but then have this teaching gig on the side. And then there's dudes who take the teaching thing just as importantly as they teach their performance thing, which sounds like exactly what you do. And I have a lot of respect for that, because if you're going to do it, do it.
If you're going to do it,
it's not a side gig. Like if you're going to be here, and you're going to inform a younger generation, and they're coming to you as a specialist. Conduct yourself with a sense of professionalism.
Professional, and it should be special, right? They should be getting material that's challenging them. That's my job. And a lot of it, it should be challenging and a lot of material, a lot of stuff for them to work on. Yeah. And I that's how I always took it. I mean, I'm always transcribing, always working, always writing, and trying to make these courses better, updating the courses and stuff and making them relevant, keeping them relevant, to what's going on with the young players,
Transcribing, I'm really passionate about that.
But
what I long way around the mountain to ask the question, how have you seen attendance at the school adjust to all this online stuff that's around?
Well, I still think in what we do, the nothing takes the place of the in-person, right?
I 100% agree.
At that level that we're teaching at, I mean, if I was just teaching, young kids scales and arpeggios, I mean, that's one thing, but that's not what we're doing. We're in such minutia over time and feel and note length and sound, that technique and that one-on-one really can't be replaced, So I haven't really noticed a difference. It was so great to get back. And when Berklee offered, they told the teachers you can stay out and still teach at home, a few semesters ago, or we'll allow you to come in one day a week. And I think I was one of like 5 teachers that said, no, I'm coming in. I'm coming in. I live the furthest away and I'm coming in. If these kids want to come in and they're paying that money, I'm going to be there.
That's cool. I like that. That's respectful of everybody's time and investments.
They actually put me in the performance center, not in the bass department. They gave me a whole floor in the performance center, and I would go in on Thursdays, and I had to switch rooms every half hour. It was crazy. But I did it because the kids deserved it. That the least I could do was show up and play, and I love it there. I love teaching there, and the kids are great. The students are great.
Who else is on faculty, and who's running the program now?
So Steve Bailey is the chairman. Okay. Sandro Socia is the assistant chair. He went to Berklee. He was actually a student of mine.
Well, now actually, sorry to interrupt your answer of my own question, but since you kind of helped put the electric bass on the map there at Berklee, were you never interested in taking over the chair or moving up the ranks?
Oh, no. I'm as high as
administrative?
I want to play, man. I don't want to push paper.
Right.
Those guys
don't.
Those guys don't. Work. They don't play, right? And that's administration, right?
Yeah.
It's faculty and then administration. That's a whole different world, you know. And believe me, I was offered years ago.
Yeah, I was going to ask, sure.
No, I just want to play bass, man.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I do is play bass.
That's great.
Yeah, that's a thankless job when you start getting into that realm there. It's like, there's no playing. Steve Bailey doesn't teach any courses or nothing.
Okay.
I mean, he's just administrative, He's just, pushes the paper,
This is kind of, man, to take what you just said about, you just want to play bass instead of getting into that, so you turn down the position. This kind of goes all the way back to when you were 17 and you wanted to be able to write your own narrative and have, your own freedom and have not be subject to anybody else. It seems
now,
like you've made that happen your whole career.
Now, let me tell you, speaking to that, right? I have never really, I don't think I've ever taught a Berklee course. All I've ever done is written my own courses. I teach all my own labs, which is like Slap 1, Slap 2, Fingerstyle R&B, Evolution of Hip Hop, Reading 1, Reading 2. I wrote all those courses. I teach all those courses and private lessons. That's it. So I kind of do my own thing inside of the Berklee shell.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean? But I don't
it's cool
teach
that they give you the freedom to do that. Yeah.
Right. They let you just do what you do and carve out this area, in the college that the students come to you for that. They're everybody's specialty kind of cats, and they come to you for that. You work on your reputation there. I mean, the students have to sign up for you. They're not put with you.
Right.
They sign up for you. And so I've never taught a Berklee course like ear training or ensembles or, harmony or stuff like that. I've only taught in the bass department, and I've only taught my own courses strictly.
I think that there's something to that. There's something about only teaching what fulfills you right. Specifically as a bass player, because all that stuff I think translates to the students. If you're teaching scales and arpeggios and things, here we go again. Here's a 3-string minor pattern. Yeah. Nobody cares. You don't care. No. The student's not going to care. But if you're like, check out this slap thing, you're excited. Then it's
now. What was interesting along those lines is I was, Victor Bailey was teaching at Berklee for a while, right? And we were good friends, right? And when he started teaching at Berklee, he would come to my office Wednesday mornings and we would listen to funk and stuff. It was great, every Wednesday morning, because I told you I come in at 5 a.m. He would come in at like 6:30, real early, and we'd just listen for hours in my office, and he'd tell me about these players. And
just the idea of like 6 in the morning, like most people aren't even up yet. You guys are just sitting there coffee.
Me and Victor Bailey talking, and if you know Victor would just talk trash about everybody. Oh my God. He was not one to pull punches and hold words back. Oh my God, just sit there and go, oh my God. And so we're talking one time, right? And he would come to my office and he's like, Vitti, he always call me Vitti. Vitti, man, I don't know about these kids, man. He goes, I don't think they love playing bass, man. He goes, I love playing the bass. Yeah. He goes, these kids don't love playing the bass. And so I saw him. I said, Victor, what happened with that student the other day? I saw you were out in the hall. I said, didn't you have a student? And you came by my office. I said, what was going on? He goes, well, the kid came in. He has an hour lesson. He didn't practice. He played me his stuff in the first 10 minutes, and I told him to leave. I go, Victor, you can't do that. I said, you can't do that, man. I said, even if they're not prepared, you still have to engage them for the hour. I said, you can't be doing that. He's like, well, what do you want me to do? He didn't practice, right? And so I said, Victor, listen. He goes, what should I teach him? He goes, I use your reading book. He goes, that's some of the hardest stuff I've ever had. He goes, your reading book and stuff. I said, Victor, you don't need to do what we do. I said, you're Victor Bailey. Yeah. I said, nobody's coming. I said, guys like me, I said, we're more general cats, right? I said, nobody knows who Antony Vitti is. Nobody cares. I said, but we're general cats to stylistically or something. I said, you're Victor Bailey. I said, just teach these kids what Victor Bailey does. They're going to come to you for what Victor Bailey does.
For Victor Bailey.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You tell them about these albums you played on with Philippe Sassé or whatever his name is. I said, and show them the tracks and tell them what you were thinking about on that bass line, what you were applying to there, how you were playing. Show them how Victor Bailey approaches a session. Yeah. And how you approach writing bass lines and creating bass lines or improvising on bass lines. I said, you're going to create your own thing. You don't need to do what we do. We're here to cover all that general stuff, You be Victor Bailey, And he was so funny. And he was just like, he evolved so much where he was just kind of, he ended up just loving teaching there so much, and all of us at the college, and because there's so many talented players. I mean, you're sitting in your office, and Petitucci's next door, and Victor Wooten's next door, and Mike Pope is over here, and you're just like, it's ridiculous, Are
those guys like guests, teachers or clinicians, or they come in regularly? I don't think of any of those guys as Boston guys,
Oh, they're not Boston guys, no, but they commute,
I know
right?
Petitucci and Victor are. I don't know where Pope is.
So Pope lives in Richmond, I think he lives in, and so he flies up and stays overnight. Nice. And he teaches. Yeah, he's there all the time.
That's an East Coast thing. Like West Coast people, like, no, I don't even want to drive to the Valley, which is 45 minutes away. Like, I don't.
I go through 3 states, right? I'm an hour north of Portland, man, right?
That was like Europe. Like, it's a 2-hour drive, but you go through 4 countries.
Right, right. That's how it is.
Here in California, we don't even, no. Was it 20 minutes? No, I don't want to do it.
Yeah. He books his plane flights, and he comes in Monday morning, and he stays Monday night, Tuesday night, and Wednesday. I see him Tuesday, Wednesday, so he's there. And Petitucci and Wooten come in once a month for a week. And then they come in our classes and they do privates and things like that, and master sessions and stuff like that. Victor's around a lot. He comes around a lot.
Okay.
And he'll come in online stuff. Like if I ask him to come in an online class or something, he'll come in, and he brings Marcus in sometimes.
Oh yeah.
I'm teaching. Get this. I'm teaching a slap class. And it's Victor Wooten and Marcus Miller in there with me, and I'm teaching. Are you freaking kidding? What planet is this? Planet Zatox here, and I'm teaching.
It sounds like an antidepressant pill. I'm on Zatox.
I think that was in the Jetsons. Remember Planet Zatox? It was the guy in the Jetsons there who was from. and so it's like. What planet is this? I got Marcus and Victor in there. I mean, that's the way it is. It's just cool, it's insane. It's insane, And it's like, that's the way Berklee is, though. You're walking down the hall, and I mean, you got cats like Oscar Stagnaro and Fernando Huergo, and I mean, these guys are all world class. Everybody is world class. I mean, Ray Brown used to come by, and I'd talk to Ray Brown. I'd sit and talk to Ray Brown. It was like, what the hell's going on? What the hell is going on?
So who?
Can I tell you a Ray Brown story? I got to tell you Ray Brown.
I'm always down to hear Ray Brown stories. Yeah.
I got to tell you a Ray Brown story. Okay. So I'm a kid, right? I'm freshman year at Berklee, and my teacher is John Neves, okay? Upright player, right, at Berklee. I'm a kid, man. I'm not a jazz player. I'm playing a Rickenbacker, right? I mean, come on.
Okay.
Yeah, let's say it all. I had to sell it because I got mocked so bad, but I was playing a Rickenbacker that first semester.
I'm going to hijack the Ray Brown story real quick. Who was the dude that got you in? Were you like a McCartney guy? Like your first couple years before?
Chris Squire, Geddy Lee, and Paul McCartney.
Okay.
They all played Ricks, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So that was it. Yeah. When I was a progressive.
I figured it had to have been one of your heroes because you're.
Yeah. I was a progressive rock player in high school, and that was it. Rush, yes, and Beatles and McCartney. It was really Wings. I liked Wings at that time.
Yeah.
And so, everybody played a Rick. I thought it was the coolest looking thing ever. That Chris Squire poster in my bedroom, with him playing the Rick with the cape on and stuff. Oh, yeah. That was it. So that was the first
picture. But the idea of Chris Squire with a cape is hilarious.
Oh, he's got the black and white cape on. Oh, yeah. I could see it like it was yesterday. And playing the Rick, with the pick. Yeah. And
okay, so back to Ray. Sorry to hijack.
Yeah, so anyway, that was my first bass. I bought a 76 Rick for $300. Got to Berklee, my first semester, got annihilated by the jazz guys.
Oh, of course.
Mocked so bad I had to sell it. I sold it for $125 to the music store. It was horrible. Anyway, so I wish I still had it. So Ray Brown comes in, right? So I don't know it's Ray Brown, right? So my teacher gives me a letter, and he goes, hey, a friend of mine's doing a clinic over at Wurlitzer's tonight. Can you bring this over? And I said, of course, Mr. Neves, of course. I'll bring the letter over for him. He goes, okay, thanks, Anthony. Right? So I go over, and there's a bunch of people waiting to get in, and I go up to this. It's a music store, Wurlitzer's, and I said, I have to bring the man here. I was told to bring him this letter, and they're like, yeah, go ahead, go, come on in, right? So I go upstairs, and I see this black man on the stage with an upright bass next to him, right? I really don't know who he is, right? And so he's talking to some people, and I walk up to him, and I said, sir, I was told to bring this to you, tonight from my teacher, John Neves. And he goes, oh, John, he smiles. He goes, oh, John, okay. And so he opens the envelope, right? And he laughs, and he's smiling, and he goes, you know what? He goes, Anthony, he goes, you're going to sit here tonight. He takes a stool, and he puts it next to him on the stage. And I go, what? Right? And so they let all the people in, and it's like every bass player in Boston. Sure. And all my teachers are there. Whit Brown, Rich Appleman, John Rapucci, all the heaviest cats in town are there. And they're looking at me like, what's that long-haired kid? He's a freshman at Berklee. He's a freshman in the bass. What's he doing sitting on the stage, right? Yeah. And I'm just sitting there next to Ray Brown, right? And Ray starts doing this clinic, right? This changed my life. I had no idea. At that point, your first semester, you're buying the real book illegally, out of a guy's car and stuff, right?
Right. You got to get the guy's number from a teacher because
he was sold him in the back of his Cadillac behind the building, right, for $20. And so Ray Brown starts doing this clinic, And he goes like this. He goes around the room. I mean, these are the heaviest bass players in Boston. Everybody's there. And he starts pointing at people. Pick a song. And the guy's like, Stella. And he goes, pick a key to somebody else. And the guy goes, D flat or something, right? He sings the melody, plays it double time, plays the bass line. Then he plays the melody and sings the bass line double time.
Damn.
Then he goes around the room, pick a song. Whatever.
Yeah.
Ladybird, pick something harder. Dexterity or something. Pick a key, point around, boom, 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 boom. Went around and just doing this. And I'm going, how is this possible? I'm a kid. How can he know all the songs in that book? I'm going, how can he know all those songs? He did this and never was even hesitated. Never even hesitated, Ryan. I couldn't believe it. And I was like, what is going on here? I'll never forget this. And he's just pointing at people. And they're picking songs in ridiculous keys. And he's melody and then sing the bass line, play the melody.
Yeah, because at a certain point, everybody's probably trying to stump him.
Right.
Like the hardest tune in the book, A Moment's Notice.
Right.
Now they're played in A major.
They're picking obscure tunes, right? Yeah. They're all players. They're picking obscure tunes. And he never even hesitated. And I'll never forget that. Now, it shook me up because I was like, that's not possible. How can somebody know that? And then, of course, as I got better, I was even more terrified, knowing how good he was.
Right.
I didn't realize back then, right? And then I saw him do that a few times afterwards, when I was a
clinic?
senior. Yeah, he'd do that at his clinics. And then when I was a teacher at Berklee, I saw him do it one time too. He came to Berklee and I was sitting there in the front and oh my God. I mean, the older I got and the better I got, the more terrified I was.
That's the thing, man, is like the older I get and the deeper I get into the thing, the more I realize how much I didn't fully understand what I was listening to for so many years.
Yeah.
Then you really get into, like you were talking earlier, all the minutia of note length and, all this stuff. Oh my gosh.
It was insane.
These guys are doing this and I didn't even know. Like who's got the most chops? When I was 19, who's got the most chops? That's the guy.
Who can play fastest.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, this guy can. But then you get into it and you realize it's not about that, and you start recognizing the minutia when you listen to someone for the first time. And like, oh my gosh. Then you realize the depth of the training that goes into the detailed focus of the minutia, and that they know, like Ray knowing every tune in every key. Like, oh my God.
It was just, Ray told me, because later, of course, I got to talk to him and knew him. And he told me, he said he was on the bandstand I asked him, when did you realize you needed to be able to do that, And he goes, I was on the bandstand, and I don't want to say the name of the player because I'll probably get it wrong, but it was a major sax player, okay? It was a major guy. He was a young player. It was a name you would know. I'm getting him confused.
Yeah.
So anyway, it doesn't matter. He's on stage, and they call a song, right? And they say, I'll just use one, whatever. Have you met Miss Jones or something, right? And so he looks back at him. Do you know that? Do you know that song? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I know it. He goes, okay, key of D flat, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And he goes, oh no, they said key of E. He goes, key of E, like this. He goes, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And he stumbled. He said, I hesitated. He goes, and I was kind of hacking on it. He goes, so as the song's going, he looks back at me and goes, what's the matter, kid? You don't have any E on that bass? He goes, and that's what I realized. I had to play more by ear than memorizing these tunes. I had to just hear it all. He was a young guy playing, and it was a great story to hear him tell it, and it was like unbelievable though, and I mean, I went. Yeah. Once I started teaching at Berklee too, when they hired me and I realized how much I liked it and I wanted to do better, I went and I did my master's degree in jazz performance. You know? Yeah. So I followed that up because I love teaching and I just needed more of that knowledge, that background. and studied with
the jazz history and culture and
the traditional exercises and traditional repertoire and exercises and all that. I needed more of that to teach, and to be more proficient at that. I was fine with the rhythm section stuff, with the walking and all that, but when it came more to the improv and things like that, I needed those traditional jazz, that Charlie Banakis kind of thing, and all of that everybody kind of goes through, that Stern went through, and all those cats.
Sure.
I needed more of that background in my playing, or to be able to teach it at least.
How do you and I'll wrap it up here. How do you teach what you heard Ray Brown do at that clinic and masterclass, and you would go on to hear him do a couple times over, every tune and every key, basically? How do you communicate the importance of that to students now who have the real B and just are going to pull out a phone or tablet and be like, yeah, sure, I know it. And I'm not. No. I've done it, and I'll be on a gig and I'll do it. Sure. Like, okay.
You do what you got to do.
Yeah. And it's become a crutch. I mean, I've talked to dudes in LA like, man, we need to start a session here. And the only rule of the session is like no phones.
Right.
If you don't know the tune, you can't play. Like, let's kind of, and if we want to get deep, if you get up there and you're sucking, someone can come up and cut you. We can come and take them, not physically, obviously, but come.
Give me that, kid.
I've unfortunately had to been the guy where like someone would tell me to go grab the bass from somebody, and I'm like, I'm all right. I'm apologizing to like, dude, I'm sorry. He set me up. Like, it's not on me. I thought you sound great. Because you feel like a dick. But there's something to that. There is something to that. It's realizing that there is a standard of excellence here.
Well, the kids don't have
to continue to strive for. And so how do you go about communicating that to students when technology makes so many crutches?
It's a huge problem. I mean, they don't have to do the work anymore, right? Part of us growing up was finding the record and then playing the vinyl and slowing it down with your finger and everything else, and doing the work. And while doing that, you're hearing the rest of the album. At Berklee, it was reel-to-reel tapes, and you had to go get the tape and then string it up and find the song you wanted to hear, and you weren't allowed to record it. You just listened and tried to. There was something to that, right? Your ears, developing your ears, hearing the changes, hearing the root motion, and things like that. That's what I notice is lacking. Like, if you give students now transcriptions, I do this all the time, right? Let's say I give them a transcription of Nathan East or something, right? Playing on a common tune or something, that they should know, like what's going on off a Michael McDonald album, right?
Okay.
So it's a different version of the tune, right? But it's Nathan East playing bass, right? So they'll come in, and I'll give them the transcription of it, and they'll come in and they'll play the bass line and pretty well, and I'll emphasize to them a lot of the times that, listen, if you got a week and I give you a bass line to play, it better be meticulous. You're not going to go on a gig or a session and make mistakes on that. That's got to be performance ready. No mistakes. All you should be worried about is the feel, your tone, your time, length of notes, things like that. Not whether or not you can play something. That's done at home. Yeah, that's taken care of at home, right? So I'll have them do that. They'll sound pretty good. They'll play the bass line. And then, of course, all you do is turn it over. Let's play.
Yeah.
What? Let's play. You've been playing that transcription? Let's play. Yeah. Let me hear you quote Nathan. Let me hear you use those ideas, those rhythms, the rhythmic vocabulary he's using. Yeah. That's what you're getting from this. And let's play. And you see them hack through the A section on what's going on. They don't know the changes. How do you not know the changes? You have just been playing that.
Right.
And playing through that, and you're not listening to it? You're not listening to the song? That's how I get them to listen. Is because they know I'm going to spring it on them. They're going to play this transcription maybe, but then I'm going to take it away from them and have them improvise or try to play it exact. And then that's what I'll do a lot of the times. I'll say, okay, we're going to just take the first 8 bars of this Pino Palladino line, right, or whatever, and let's just loop it over and over. Let's play it. You get it down, and then take it away from them. Yeah. Now play it for me exactly. as best you can. Let's see if you're absorbing that rhythmic palette. That's what you want to get from Pino. You want to get his rhythm. You can play everything he's playing. Yeah. You got to get the rhythmic vocabulary in your playing. Rhythm defines styles. You know, you got to play appropriately in the style. If somebody calls you, I talk about
that a lot. I agree. It's the vocabulary. It's still
vocabulary.
I said it not that long ago. It's like going to another country. If you want to speak that language, you have to speak that language. Well, you're there. Right. And it's no different than being an American and you hear a foreigner kind of butcher the English language a little bit. They kind of know it, but then they're super fluent in their hometown language.
Right.
Music
and
is
not
the same
only,
way.
Not only can we tell that they don't know the language proficiently, we can hear the accent in that person, even though we can understand them. But we can also tell in Boston if somebody is from Lynn or Revere or Dorchester, right? We can get the minutia of those dialects. Or in New York, are you from the Bronx or from the Queens
Long
or
Island,
whatever? And I do the same thing I explain to the students about music. When you're proficient in a style, those players can tell where you're at. You're not fooling anybody. What you got to do is play strong, and the vocabulary you have has to be super strong and confident when you play. Don't try to play stuff, you're not going to talk to a nuclear physicist and try to bullshit him about nuclear physics, right? Just listen to him and ask a few questions. And when you're playing in a style that you're uncomfortable with, I tell them, I might be the low man on the totem pole on this gig, but then you might come to another style where I might be towards the top of that totem pole, right? Because I know the vocabulary of those styles. When I'm playing jazz, right, I know the walking is strong. I know the rhythm section playing is strong, right? But my soloing is not going to necessarily be as strong as these cats. I'm not trying to fool anybody. I'm playing within myself. I'm going to play confident stuff that sounds good.
That's the lesson right there. Play within yourself. Don't don't
learn the melody. Learn the melody and play within yourself.
That's a huge one. Yeah.
Right. You can always quote the melody and improvise on the melody and not make a fool out of yourself, or pass on the solo. Just take a pass on it if you're not comfortable, but play strong. The rhythm section playing has got to be killing. The soloing can be okay. The bass playing can't be okay. The soloing can be okay. And if you're a great bass player, you're going to play good solos. You're going to take good solos.
Man, Anthony, this has been fantastic, man. Dude, we're gonna be in touch. I feel like we got like another 5 episodes.
Oh, anytime, man. You let me know.
You do a home remodel, hit me up. Maybe we'll start another podcast.
You got to come up and see it sometimes. You're in Maine. You got to come up. You got to come up and see it. Absolutely. You just let me know. All right.
All right. That was my talk with Antony Vitti. I love what he had to say early on in the conversation about choosing his own path and being very deliberate about what he wants to do with his career and how that influenced his time at Berklee as an educator and just kind of doing his own thing all the time. That's really inspiring. Because there's nothing worse than just being subject to whatever the phone call is, and like that's your gig. Like, all right, well, I guess I'll take this one. But being really deliberate and choosing what you want your career to be, I think that's absolutely important. And I love that Anthony spoke about that. Again, stop by AntonyVitti.com. Check out the books that he's written. If you are enjoying the Bass Shed podcast, please hit subscribe wherever you are listening to it. As I mentioned, I will be reporting on my NAMM findings next week. And that's all I got for this one, folks. That's all I got. I'll catch you on the next one in a minute.